Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to an exciting podcast interview. One of my favorite men in the industry, Dave Steinberg. He's the CEO and founder of Foureyes. Come on, David. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Great to be here, as always.
Hey, so congratulations. Let's just start off. Even though we're talking about Foureyes, I do want to say that there are many entrepreneurs who listen to my podcast. A lot of people who have the entrepreneurial spirit. You build up a company. Hopefully, other people see value. Eventually, you sell. So congratulations. I heard some news that one of your companies, AdParents, sold. Tell me a little about the buyer. Are they staying in automotive? And was this a good event for your employees?
Yeah, I mean, I think buyer is Advanced Local, that we've gotten to know them really well over the sale. I think, I started AdParents in 2009, and we started it as digital marketing. At the time, there was like a lot of scammy Google Ads stuff. So we based it in like high ethics. What does good strategy look like? And AdParents has been a really good executor in the space. Now, I've always felt that Foureyes and AdParents, as Foureyes was growing, were a little bit at conflict. That Foureyes is in the sales process space, and I never wanted to I felt like these two things, like sales process, you should not be then telling people to spend more money on marketing, right?
That's right. There's an inherent conflict in it.
Yeah. So and that conflict, we had them separate. They ran like separate companies. What I would say has been the biggest moment that's been great as an entrepreneur, because I've exited other companies, but I would say they've been more handoffs than exits. Is seeing this company come in. Advanced Local has zero-sum Cloud Theory. They bought Search Optics. But they're bringing resources and their excitement and seeing that, and some of the stuff they're doing already, and they're executing quickly with the tech is amazing. It's like, oh shoot, I wish I did that. It's like wow. So I think AdParents is gonna be an interesting company to watch. I know they're gonna be doing really interesting stuff. I think and it's cool to see the energy and enthusiasm put back into the company, where my focus has really been on Foureyes.
Right. And that's what I know you as. And tell you the truth, I didn't even know that AdParents was your, company. So I was super excited for you. And I know that Search Optics and AdParents is in a number of certified digital marketing programs for OEMs, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I think in those programs, AdParents did a really good job balancing the need of the dealers versus the needs of the OEM.
Right.
And those, but yeah, I think and Advanced Local, with what they have with zero sum and Cloud Theory, again, they're focused on inventory. And I think so much of successful marketing is now really understanding the inventory of the dealers sort of intimately. So I think
that's right.
Yeah, they're going to be doing interesting work.
So let's dive into what's new with Foureyes, and let's just set up base level, because I think it's really important that this podcast reaches new listeners all the time. They may have missed some of our previous interviews. So if you run into a dealer, hey, I'm David, and I'm a founder of Foureyes. Dealer's going to say, well, other than we used to call people with glasses Foureyes in elementary school, what do you do that you can help me and my dealership? How do you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, Foureyes is sales enablement software. So sales enablement is, we want to increase close rate. We want a better sales process.
Great.
I think that Foureyes does a really good job understanding the behavioral psychology of two unique sets of people. One, the consumer, what really influences close rates and changes consumer behavior. And two, the dealership. Dealerships don't want to change sales process just willy-nilly.
Right.
So how do you sort of influence sales process without requiring them to change everything? There's a lot of sales trainers that are like, I can guarantee you that I can give you exactly what you want. But it's like, well, no, you're coming in, you're blowing up the whole staff. It's very disruptive.
Right.
I'm very much into the idea of non-disruptive sales enablement. How do you make changes that can improve and sort of bring people along, rather than just sort of force them to wipe the desk and start all over?
I love that, David, because Listen, sales training, sales process training is always something that dealers need, and all industries rely on sales coaches, sales trainers to build skills. But what's sustainable? That's the bigger question. And when you and I were talking, you made a pretty factual statement. It was like, matter of fact, the first thing we do in our sales enablement is to make sure dealers get all their leads in their CRM. And you just said it like, matter of fact. But if I was a dealer and you told me, yeah, the first thing we do is make sure you get all your leads in the CRM, I'm sure many general managers are going to like, what are you talking about, David? If somebody fills out a lead on my website, it goes into the CRM. Auto Trader, Cars.com, Edmunds, they send the leads into my CRM. The OEM sends the leads in the CRM. So what are you smoking that you think I'm not doing that? And how do you respond?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, if dealers have always known not all leads make it into CRM. If I call the dealership, I'm on the phone with the dealership and I have a great call. It's 10 minutes. I'm talking to the dealership. Well, there's a 26% chance that sales call is not logged in the CRM, period.
Wow.
So 1 in 4 sales calls don't make it in, right? There's a dirty secret in automotive. 7% of forms do not make it into the CRM for a variety of reasons, right? There's like 3 reasons. Like, one is like they might have the contact us form where it's like, oh yeah, well, a lot of people contact about employment or soliciting. Well, Foureyes will look at that and say, and because we also look at the web activity, we look at the contents of the form, the web activity of this belongs to CRM, we add it to that. But then the hidden secret in automotive, because they lease their websites and they're adding these widgets, stuff is crashing all the time.
Mm-hmm. Come on, brother. Speak the truth.
Well, yeah, like stuff's crashing on their website or there'll be like somebody fat fingers an ADF email address and it changes, or they hire a new vendor who the salesman doesn't realize that they actually don't know how to ADF a lead, and they're just sending a spreadsheet of like, there's all of these things that happen that create these like bad scenes for the consumer. And like, again, like we were talking about institutional memory, like if you don't have a lead in your CRM, well, then you can't market to them. You can't talk to them. I mean, all the downside, but on the simplest level, you don't know your real close rate. And we're seeing a lot of like incentive changes and incentive stuff. And like, there's like, you will find dealers, there are dealers all over the country who have incentives, whether they realize it or not, that incentivize their sales team not to put leads in their CRM.
Let's pause there for a minute, because I know we've got dealership manager attention, but they're going to say, okay, David, I'm going to believe you that I could have up to 10% of really qualified consumers who want to buy a car call me on the phone, and my team is not going to put them in. Maybe even 20%. I can buy in that, but how are you going to fix that? Can you talk tactically how your software is involved in listening to the calls and then comparing that call to see if it ever gets into the CRM?
Yeah. So very simply, we're going to listen to the call. We're going to look at the caller contents. We also have a patent on connecting the web activity to the call. So we can see like, okay, this is what they did on the website, which gives you a lot of context of the lead. Like, hey, they sounded a bit apathetic. I understand why the salesperson didn't log the lead, because they were, they got off the phone really quickly, but gosh, they've been on the website 6 times. They've looked at this piece of inventory 19 times. You really should log them in your CRM. So we're going to listen to the call. We're going to transcribe, get the contents of the call. Then we're going to check the CRM 2 hours later. If it's not there, we add it for them.
Great.
And that's really the simple process.
So David, let's talk about that, because today dealers are looking for value. They are looking to turn their inventory faster. Obviously, if there's incentives based on closing rate, if someone feels a little wishy-washy on the phone, I could see why a salesperson may not put them in to the CRM, because it would lower their close rate and that could impact their pay plan. So when you do reactivate these, and I'm just going to say gaps in the sales process, whether it's human or technical.
Yep.
When you look at those saved opportunities, opportunities that would not have been the CRM, do they perform normal, meaning like, hey, if the dealership's close rate is 15%, these are at 15%? And have you looked at the return on investment? Whatever a dealer pays you based on just that gap filling, like they're not going to sell people that they're not in their CRM unless they just walk in, which of course happens,
Yeah.
but we don't know. How do you value or describe those saved leads and the overall return on investment?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So let me answer this in two parts, right? First
Yeah.
part is, do those leads perform as normal? What's fascinating is no, they don't. They perform. There is a level of salesperson discretion when they don't add a lead. They sometimes do know. So the close rate tends to be a little bit lower.
And that makes sense. And thank you for just being candid about that, because my mind would say if their verbal signals were a little confused, I think the salesperson might have some insights, but obviously there's a percentage of these leads that are consumers who are buying cars.
Yeah. 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 So no, that on average, they tend to perform a little bit worse, like about 50 to 3/4% of the close rate. So if you're closing 15% of your web leads, you're looking at a 7.5 to 11% close rate.
Okay,
On
that's fair.
these leads, you don't generally. I mean, that's what we see the data all the time. Now, I think there's other things we can do, because those leads tend to get round robined. So they're not working. So when we add it to the and that's an incentive. So oftentimes when people sign up for our safety net, they'll say to their sales team, "Hey, no problem. We got this new tool. It's going to log the leads if you don't log them. But by the way, it's going to round robin them." Well, guess what happens? Your sales team instantly starts logging all their leads, right? So
because they don't want that lead to go to someone else.
They don't want that lead to go to somebody else, and so and the round robining, like there's a bunch of stuff we're doing on safety net that I'm really excited about from a roadmap perspective, because it has the opportunity. I think we have an opportunity to increase close rate even more. But I also think that, like, whenever I speak about safety net, there's always a dealer that raises their hand. They're like, "Oh, I love that tool. It's my favorite tool. You captured all these forms that I was missing for a month, or I was missing for some time." So at some point, it's not consistent. It's not like we're going to consistently add 25% of your leads. And sometimes it's like nothing.
Right.
And other times it spikes really high. And it's when it spikes really high that you're super grateful that you have.
Right. But that's why you call it safety net. You don't always fall on the tightrope, but when you do fall, you want to be caught. Let's talk about one other piece that I thought was very important. And this gets into the conversation of AI. So we're going to talk about AI, but I want to really talk about an approach you take, which is, Brian, our tools to engage consumers on the website are not meant to replace salespeople. They're meant to engage them and keep them engaged. And that's why, your engagement tool is really performing well, because it's not trying to be something it was never intended to, or the consumer doesn't want. Can we talk about specifics now? A dealer doesn't know what we're talking about, but you can put software on the website that looks at the patterns, the returns, what consumers are doing, and to be almost like a concierge, an aide, a coach, without having a conversation. How does that work?
Yeah, so our prospect engagement module is like Zillow for your website. It's going to look at everything you're doing on the website. As you're looking at different inventory, it's going to change how it communicates with you. Now, one of the interesting things, when we built this tool, we're building this tool where, like, the V1 of this tool, this is like 2018, 2019, V1 of this tool, and my marketing and data science team did this side project where they said, "Hey, we're getting ready to launch this tool. Let's go out and look at what's the effect of automated communication on leads." And we expected that it would say this great story and we would launch this tool and it would be wonderful.
Right.
Well, they go out and do it, and I nearly shut down the tool because they go, "Hey, we have a big problem. We're seeing so what they did, we had human analysts, and we're now automating this process in really cool ways, which I can talk about later. But we had human analysts go through thousands of leads, and they marked every single activity in the CRM. Was this real human outreach, or was this automated outreach, or was this just an internal note?
Yep.
Right? And they flagged it all. And then we looked at what was the connection rate and the close rate difference where automated communication. And we freaked out. We almost shelved this tool because we saw that automated communication was actually decreasing connection and close rate. Right? And we go, oh no. We thought we're launching this tool that's gonna, we're professing to help increase close rate.
Right.
And so we looked at it more carefully, and what we could see at the time was a lot of the stuff that was doing it was like spoofing the salesperson's name or spoofing their, coming from the salesperson. Right. And you get those emails. We all get those emails where it's like, hey, Dave, just seeing if you're still in the market.
Yeah, I think Conversica was one of the early players in this idea of, hey, if somebody drops the ball, I'm your assistant, Sally, or I work with Brian, or try to quickly engage.
Yeah. And so what we saw with that was that, and you can understand as a consumer, you see it, the font looks a little different. It feels a little different. It has a thing. I just did a presentation and I asked, hey, people actually can already detect AI really well. Like we're moving very quickly. Like our own internal AI detectors are getting higher. And so when people just think they're on a tickler, they take away the value of the communication. They're like, oh, when the salesperson then reaches out, they're just reaching out because their CRM told them they have to call me today.
Right.
And so what we kind of stumbled into it, but what we got lucky with and what we sort of institutionalized a lot of the learnings was like, wait a second. How are you non-disruptive to this? Let's add value to the consumer without inserting ourselves into the sales process.
So give them hints or suggestions without trying to have a conversation with them because they may not need it or want it.
And the core thing too is institutional memory is one of the biggest reasons why the sales process sucks at automotive. Every single communication they have feels like they didn't, they're starting all over with the dealer. So like, when we represent the inventory well and communicate back to the inventory, that's what happened on the website. The price did change. There is new vehicles. There is new inventory. So we're saying exactly what the salesperson would say in that conversation. We're just communicating it to them in a different way. It's worked really well. So now as we look at AI, we're back to that challenge of, okay, how do we layer in really smart communications that aren't just blasting people, but are actually adding value to the sales process, but then giving that institutional memory to that BDC rep or salesperson. So when they have that conversation with the salesperson, it's not like they're starting over.
Yeah. So let's, you used the phrase institutional memory a few times. Let me translate that. Is that a human who is in your BDC, who's given 100 new leads a month, 75 new leads a month to work, plus what they didn't close the last 2 months, makes it very difficult for them to scan all the communication in a CRM, to understand where they left off, to differentiate one call from another. And so you're saying, like, Brian, people want to deal with real people, but AI and our tools can help make those conversations more effective, make sure they're more valuable, because we want to bring the memory, the actions, and the history in an easy way for a BDC person to leverage. Am I kind of getting at that future state? Humans don't go away, but they need a better way to serve the shopping and activity that consumers are doing on the web?
Yeah, I mean, I say this all the time, but I think that like people are both the advantage and disadvantage of the modern dealership, right? And we need to make people just the advantage. We got to remove the disadvantage line of the people. And I think that like the challenge is if you move people out of the sales process entirely. Let's say I come in with great technology, but you no longer need your staff anymore. Guess what? You might as well just hand your keys over to Amazon and hand your keys over to a bigger player, because they're going to just take that business and do a lot better than you are with it. So people are your inherent advantage, but we got to remove the disadvantage line of people.
So it's not replace people, but build them up, not replace, but build them up with the right tools that fill in gaps that make them more effective, more valuable, even desirable for the consumer to communicate with.
Well, yeah, and if you look at all the negative reviews of the consumer of the buying process, and you sort of you look at what's underneath the surface of this. What are they really saying? They wasted my time. They didn't. They were. I had to repeat myself over and over. It is the core problem is this institutional memory that at any point in time, what the user now expects in the modern age is at any point in time, you can take all the information they've already given you in one way, shape, or form and build on it to a sales process. In automotive, they feel like start over until they buy a car, and it feels dirty at the end. And so I look at a lot of the AI tools and I'm like, they're not solving the institutional memory problem. They're actually making it worse. They're just having more scattered conversations with the consumer and hoping it leads to more output. And so I think AI is amazing. We're using AI in really great ways, but I think we have to lean into the institutional memory problem. How do you connect them to that BDC rep and make them super powerful when they connect? There's no wasted time, right? Even the calls, look at the length of time it takes to get transferred to a salesperson in automotive. Right. Like there's a piece where, I'm really excited about where we're going with it, because I think we're solving the problem differently. We're looking at how do you make that BDC rep so they're connecting to people at the right time, the right place, with the right conversation, and they're way more effective.
So let me jump in then. If you are a sales enablement platform, and we've learned that your safety net puts in-market shoppers back in the CRM, you're providing tools that can bring memory back to a shopper and a BDC conversation. But let's talk about the bigger problem. Is that dealers have a lot of tools on their website. I mean, there are dealers with 2 DR tools. There are dealers with 2 trade tools. They have soft pull credit. They have credit soft pull inside their DR. So when we think of sales enablement, and you're watching, right, what's going on the website, you're hearing what's going on the phone calls. Do you have any advice, or does your future vision for Foureyes help a dealer say, hey man, you're losing a lot of people at this point, maybe you should change tools, or hey, you're getting feedback from customers that the numbers aren't matching up, you really got to go to one tool? I hate when I see Capital One and a digital retailing tool, there's 2 different prices being offered. I just hate all of that. And so if dealers believe more is better, is there anything that you're doing to help debunk white space is bad and put more buttons, and who cares if you have 2 different trade tools? Maybe they like this one. I mean, I scratch my head. Are you seeing anything that you can help dealers actually remove friction in the process?
Yeah. So, and I would say I look at the inverse of the problem you just said. Okay, so the problem isn't that dealers have 2 tools. They want to have 2 tools because those tools might solve different problems. Let's assume for the sake that those 2 tools solve different problems.
Okay, that's
so
fine.
Now the problem is, how do those 2 tools not step all over the consumer?
Come on.
And I think that, to me, that I've talked a lot about there being a big data problem in automotive. So much of what we're building now, for example, we are passionate that all the data that the dealer puts into the CRM is their data and needs to be extracted. Now, here's the big advantage. Okay, most of the certified interfaces don't actually send the notes and activity on a lead. And
we know that. Yep, we've talked about that your API may be a limited bandwidth API of data.
Yeah, so you take that and you give that to an AI provider. Well, what kind of conversation is that AI going to have if it can't read the notes and activity in the CRM?
Bingo.
Right?
Bingo.
And so now you have 2 tools that can't read the notes and activity in the CRM. And you're now talking to the consumer. So you can see how you're making the problem worse. Now, so where I look at it, like where we're doing stuff that I'm really excited about, I don't want to be the one-stop. Some of the providers that try to be the one-stop shop for dealers, this is how we got into the problems that dealers are so frustrated with CDK and Reynolds and some of these big things where they go, I'm stuck with these providers.
Right.
We want to give dealers choice, but we have to free their data so that like Adherence or Foureyes and Impel can work together. Right? We might be solving some of the same problems, but I want Foureyes and another AI system to not step all over the consumer. So the way we're doing it with Foureyes is we're actually we're reading the activity. They are using another AI tool, and I go, oh, wait, this AI tool dropped a note in the CRM. Let's grab that note. Let's look at what that AI tool did, and let's make sure we don't just repeat that and go out and communicate to the consumer.
Smart.
And so I think like the onus is not on dealers to choose one tool. The onus is on us software providers to offer a better integration so that our tools are not stepping all over each other.
Love it. You know, David, as you look out on your product roadmap for the remainder of 2024, is there anything that you're excited about, like that you could be talking about in June at DMSC or talking about in November at the Modern Retailing Conference? What's something you're working on that you could share a little bit that would get dealers, say, maybe interested in reaching out to you and being part of your future roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really looking at how we can layer on two-way generative communication that one truly considers all the other tools. Not saying you have to replace this tool and this tool. We're not use us and not use them. We're saying, hey, this is the problem we're solving, and we're going to look carefully at the communication that you have with each consumer to make sure that we're not over-communicating, over-messaging them. But then at the other side, how do we truly be an assistant to that BDC rep and salesperson? That's our target audience. We want to make those people more powerful. And hey, we got to report to the sales managers, we got to report to the GMs to show them what we're doing. But you know, Brian, my little brother just became a salesperson at a dealership, and he sent me this text. I can pull it up right now, and it was all excited, and it said, "I even got a desk, my very own desk." Right. So think about that. Like we have people who are given so little tools and support that when they write, I even get my very own desk. And so I believe that we have an opportunity to up-level these people incredibly. Sure. And I believe AI is an opportunity. It's not an opportunity to replace some tasks and some things that are inefficient, absolutely. But then solve the institutional memory problem. Make that person seem really smart and really helpful. Because like, here's the other dirty secret we're finding. When you look at high close rates, 99.9% of the time, it's because they're really good with getting their people involved. It's not because they automated out people.
Yep.
The good dealers get their people involved. So like where we're doubling down is how to take all of our data, how to layer on smart communication, but bring the people along in the dealership.
Right. Well, David, I am really glad we had this conversation because as I talk to dealers, their number one concern is, Brian, I need more leads. And I tell them, you just need to do a better job with the leads you have. And you're going to add, hey, you should have all the leads you should have. This product is perfectly timed. And as we move back to a more challenging sales climate, I don't think dealers need to get back to the basics because that would be a historical look back. I think they need to look at the new tools that are available, the new support systems to elevate. Instead of replacing people, let's build them up. And for dealers who are listening to this podcast and are interested in what Foureyes is doing, you should know that they are one of the sponsors at the upcoming Digital Marketing Strategies Conference in Austin, Texas, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. This is the Davos of automotive digital marketing and AI. The top leaders are there. The founders, the innovators are there to do one thing. To collaborate, learn from each other, see what's happening in the marketplace. And the dealers who come out are connected with the next generation solutions, the new insights, the new applications, and of course, this is the place when dealers really get serious about managing their first-party data, whether it's with a CDP or with Foureyes or with a marketing automation platform. Owning your data, activating your data is the future to make sure we can have better customer experiences. And as David mentioned a number of times, to support your staff to be more effective. So if you haven't registered for the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference, go to digitalmarketingstrategies.org. David, are you excited to be down in Austin, Texas, showing people all the cool stuff you guys been working on?
Oh yeah, Brian, and I'll give you another plug, which I've always felt that what makes your stuff a different type of event is you really have two-way conversations where you'll poke holes. You don't get up and just let a vendor just sort of give their sales pitch. You'll poke holes, you'll push, and it's, to me, watching your stuff, that's actually where I learn the most. Is in the hole poking, not in the presentation. The presentation's canned and it's marketing speech. The hole poking is where you sort of draw out what, I found it really interesting. So this year I'm planning on sitting in a lot more of the sessions,
right,
and giving myself that time. So I think it's a great conference.
Yeah, I'm excited because, there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of failed executions with customer data platforms, with data hygiene, a lot of challenges with measuring marketing efficiency. And of course, you're in the middle of all that. And I'm going to hold people accountable. So thank you, David, for those kind words. It is an amazing event. It's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And for the largest dealer groups, we have a very special event called the CXO Summit. It's on June 1st. It's for dealer groups of 10 or more stores. So if you're watching this podcast interview and you are the marketing manager, the operations manager, the CTO or CEO of a large dealer group, you may want to consider auditing the CXO Network event June 1st in Austin. It's a fantastic peer group. We're not looking at numbers like a 20 group. We're talking about innovation and we're solving problems. So it's a great time for everyone to meet down in Austin, Texas. David, if somebody wants to book a demo of your product solutions that you have available now, what's the best website for people to go to? Because I think if they just typed in Foureyes, they're going to get a lot of funny images on Google.
Well, it's Foureyes.io. That's
okay,
like the
well, see, there we go. Some people might think com.
I'll give you a spoiler. I'm David at Foureyes.io. So if you can remember Foureyes.io and you can remember David, you could remember David at Foureyes.io too.
Okay.
And
that's it. You got the email address of the CEO and founder of Foureyes. I want to thank everyone who listened in today. And if you don't know, we have great interviews with automotive tech leaders, innovators, and dealer groups who are trying to push automotive retail to the next level to sell more cars in a digital age. So just search for the Brian Pash Podcast on your favorite podcast players, and we'll catch you next time on another podcast interview.